So in this section, I'm using several examples to show you how to calculate the present value or future value of a single sum cash flow or present value and future value of annuity. So for each problem, you should read the question carefully. The first is what is unknown. We know for the single sum cash flow problem, we have four factors. One is present value, one is future value, one is number period, and interest per period. Usually, you are given an interest, for example, this one, okay, is annual interest. And the interest you use in the formula depends on how the interest is compounded. So if the interest is compounded annually, so you can use it directly, and the n is the number of years. Otherwise, you have to transform to the right format. Okay, now in this question, we are given the value of the cash flow today. So it implies the present value. We are given the interest rate. And also we know the number 2 years. Because interest is compounded annually, so interest per period, the I, is 6%. Right, so I can write down here, I is 6%. N is 2. Why? Because interest is compounded annually. We have the present value is 16,650. What we don't know is the future value. That's actually the question asked for. To what amount will the investment grow in 2 years? Now, because future value is unknown, so we just use future value. The formula future value equals present value multiplies future value factor of single sum. This factor is determined by number of period and interest per period. Okay, so the present value is 16,650, and the factor we can look up table 2. Okay, table 2, row number 2 and column 60%, and we can find the factor is 1.1236. So the future value of this single sum cash flow is about 18,708. Okay, so next, to what amount would the investment grow in 2 years if the fund earned 6% annual interest rate compounded semi-annually? So now this question changed. Although it asks us the future value, but it's different. Why? Because interest is compounded semi-annually rather than annually. So we keep applying this formula, future value factor, but keep in mind, now the number of periods is now 2 because interest is compounded semi-annually. That means it compounded twice a year. So the number of periods is 2 years multiple 2. Actually, it's 4. Interest rate per period, now each period is half year, so the interest per period is now 6%, is 3%. So now we put number inside. The factor will be different. Why? Because the table again is table 2, but we find the number, the factor at the row number 4 and column 3%. So the factor is 1.12551. So the future value of this cash flow will be 18,740. Okay, which is a little bit greater than the one of the first part. The difference is $32. Why it is greater? Because the interest is compounded more frequently, twice a year rather than once a year. So the interest earned in the prior period will be reinvested earlier and generate interest. Okay, so that's the question number 1. Now let's move on to the next one. So this is a question, this guy invests this amount today, and she needs this amount in the future. How many years? 15. Okay, so the question we can translate into this one, because we are not told how the interest is compounded, right? By default, it is compounded annually. If we are not specifically informed, so first we don't know the interest, and because it is compounded annually, so it's 15. We have the present value, which is $45,299. We also have a future value, which is $165,000. Okay, so for this question, the unknown one is the interest per period, or the interest per year, the annual interest, which is unknown, or which we are looking for. Because we have both present value and future value, what we can do is we can apply either of the formula. Let me first use the present value formula. Present value equals the future value multiply present value factor Ni, which N is 15, I is unknown. Okay, now next step. The present value is 45,299. Present value, future value is 165,000, and the present value factor is 15 and I. Next, both sides of this equation divided by 165,000. So this will be 45,299 divided by 165,000. It equals present value factor 15 and I. And this part I circled, you can calculate. It just equals to its value is 0.27454. Okay, so now we have the factor, the present value factor. So we look up table 2, right? And we have 15, so we look up row number 15 to find which column we can find the factor most close to this one. And finally, you will find the I is 9%. Okay, so that's our answer. So 9% is the annual interest rate. So for this guy, if she will invest 45,299 today, and the interest rate or time value of money is 9%, and the interest is compounded annually, so in 15 years, or by the end of the 15th year, she can get $165,000. Okay, and because we are also given the future value, right? So we can also apply the other formula. Future value equals present value, future value factor, which is determined by 15 and I, right? Yeah, again, you just input everything, 165,000, 45,299, the future value factor, 15 and I. Both sides divided by 45,299, so the future value factor, 15i, equals what is it? I don't have it here, but you can look up, okay? For sure, you will get I equals 9%. Don't forget, because this is a future value factor for the single sum of future value for $1, you need to look up table 1 rather than table 2, okay? Now, next. Again, one guy invests this amount today, earn interest 8%, annual interest rate. Okay, so how many years will it take for the fund to grow to 22,000? Okay, so because it only made one investment, so it is again single sum problem. So let's translate the question into this format. First, we know, because we are not told how the interest is compounded, so we assume it is compounded annually. So interest per year or per period is 8%. We don't know how many years. We have the present value, which is 14,973. We have the future value, which this guy needs, 22,000. Okay, so again, you can put into use either of the formula. Okay, let me just use the present value as an example. Present value equals the future value multiply present value factor, and we don't know n, we know 8%. Right, now we use numbers to replace these letters. So present value is 14,973. Future value is 22,000. Multiply present value factor and 8%. Both sides divided by 22,000. So it will be 14,973 divided by 22,000. So that's just the factor. Okay, so if you calculate, this factor is just equals to 0.68059. Again, because this is present value factor for single sum, you look up table 2. Okay, and the column 8%. You'll be fine. The n is just about 5. So because interest is compounded annually, so it also means 5 years. That's the answer.